Hey guys, it's time for another video, and this video is going to be on overwintering and preparing your orchids to overwinter. So a lot of us do not live in tropical wonderland, like that much is obvious, unfortunately, as much as we all want to be. And so we have to overwinter our orchids. Now for me, during the summertime, my orchids grow outside. I have like some that are still sitting on the table or the stand right here. Some will go like down here by the door, others will go on. It's now sitting on the side of the house that are by those pots, but a wheel cart for the cattleyas. And they'll just sit out there in the summer and spring. Okay. But when it starts to get cold, which is right now, about now, like mid to late October, we start getting temperature swings into the 50s and 40s with lower days in the 70s and 60s. And so with that in mind, you just want to remember that you gotta know your own environment too, of course. When I would bring my plants in, you may not necessarily have to bring yours in. So that's just something to know. Now for me, the moment it starts to drop, which i.e. when it is in the 50s at night, I will bring everything in. The most temperamental warm growers of mine will come in when it gets down to like 62, which generally they stay inside the greenhouse anyway, but if I have any of them out, I bring them in. The cattleyas, the big cattleyas, and the other things like that, Rhicolalia digbyata. I slept well last night, but today I'm just suddenly super tired. Or like this is my big Grammatophyllum scriptum. Some of these just the Cattleya warneri alba, Ports of Paradise, like all of those will come in once it gets into the 50s. This is just because a lot of the time mine are still growing by the time. They usually put on like some fall growth. And I don't want that growth to be damaged by cold or slowed down. So I bring them inside to keep the plants warm while they're still growing. Some of them will even start to bloom over this period, but right this year I haven't been so lucky with that. The things that are blooming are the phals, and I do have one Cattleya in bloom, or Cattleya type in bloom, Calothryn Hilo Adventure. It's a beautiful flower, and it's got a nice full spike developing. So, but for the most part, the Cattleyas are not blooming right now. So I'll bring those in when it gets into the 50s, and the hardiest orchids, which are generally generally like the temperament or the dendrobiums, like there's that little cork hanging off there is Dendrobium laudesii, and then my little sweet scent is up top there. Those will come in when it gets into the low 40s. Otherwise, they can stay out, and we'll be fine. So obviously most things come in when it's into the. Hey, me again. I don't know what's up with me, but yeah, when it gets into the 50s. So how I bring them in, I hand inspect each plant as I bring it in. I check it for mites, for pests, for snails, for damage that occurred over the summer that I didn't catch at some point for some reason. And I keep note of that. Like I don't write it down, but I keep a mental note because I have enough orchids right now where I can do that. I'll remember which one had what problem. But I just want, and I encourage you guys to do the same because it's real important that when you're bringing your plants in, especially if they've been growing outside in the nature, especially with me, like I live in a forest. So if they've been living outside all summer and spring and part of fall, they might have some bugs in on around them that you don't want to attract into your home or your grow space. Now, some of us bring our plants inside to our houses. I bring mine into my greenhouse. So it's just important to keep an eye out on that. Another thing is for obviously water them. If they're due for a watering as you're bringing them in, you might as well water them while you're outside and just place everything inside all nice and watered. Now, because I don't grow my orchids in the house anymore, I don't really know how to handle a large amount of orchids bringing them into the house because I never had to do that. I always had my greenhouse. But with the greenhouse growers, if you use your greenhouse in the summer, mostly as like a shade house like I do, then when it times to function as an actual greenhouse over the winter, you got to stuff everything back in there, which means you need to be thinking about your space, your heating, how you're going to keep that place warm. Now, how warm you keep it depends on what you're growing, because I grow entirely warm growers for the most part. Some of them are warm to cool tolerant. warm to cool tolerant. So like the Lodogesii, it was fine growing warm and hot in the summer, but in the winter it wants to cool down. And so I can give it that. And so what I've done is I have just a ton of shelving in here. I got a shelf there, a 3-tiered, but I don't use the bottom except for like bigger like storage unit stuff. 3-tiered metal shelf there, a 3-tiered shelf there, another 3-tiered shelf here, and another 3-tiered shelf here. And then I've also got, there's one hanging there with a couple Vandas and my Bulbophyllum Lilacanum on it. And then I've got this one here, which has got a whole bunch of things, from like Hoyas to Nepenthes. There's my Lucinieri and that wood basket, Vanilla Orchid, Vanilla Planifolia, and a mounted Encyclia diurna right here, Brassivola nodosa. So I've got a whole bunch of things in here. So I came up with creative solutions, I think anyway, using these greenhouse hooks that are, they sell them for these models, these Palram models, to hold up these hooks. So I could hook even more things and take up less space, like hanging above the shelves or on the shelves. And so you just want to think about your storage space. You want to pack your orchids as like, you want to get all your orchids in there, but you don't want to pack them on top of each other. The only reason this one's sitting on top of my Warneri is because it's light and small, and it's not going to be a problem there, and it's only temporary. But you want to get as creative with your storage as possible so you can fit as many orchids safely in there. The tighter they are in the packing that you put when you put them together, the more easily pests will be transferred between them, which makes it even more important that you inspect them before you bring them in. Now another thing is thinking about how you're going to get some of your blooms. Now some of these orchids are orchids that require a temperature drop of some sort to trigger their blooms. Like I've got one of my big Phalaenopsis out there. I've got my Miltassa right there. Dragon Charmy, which Rhynchonopsis Dragon Charmy, which I have no idea which parent it takes after for blooming. Japonica requires a drop, whereas Gigantea is a hot grower and doesn't. So I've just got it out here to try. I've got Cloisia Rebecca Northern. 2 nice new bulbs that hopefully will bloom, and I've just got it sitting out here for now. A Cattleya Synchorana. And Dendrobium Lodogesii again. So the things that can tolerate the cooler drop, I keep outside as long as possible. That includes obviously like those orchids there. That Rebecca Northern's coming inside as soon as I'm done because I keep it out only in the high 50s, low 60s. I don't want it to get any colder. And no, I don't want the Grammatophyllum to get any colder for that matter, but pardon me again. But the longer they stay out, the better. Now, if you have to absolutely bring them in, because I have lived in places where it will be like 60s at night and then suddenly be down in the low 40s the next night. Like I have lived through that. I feel you if that's what your environment likes to do. But sometimes you just can't leave them out. If you can't leave them out, don't fret too much. You have plenty of options. You can put them in your house in the window where it gets cool but it doesn't get super cold. Or you could do what I do, where even though I have my heater in there next to in front of the fan to push the help force the heat around, there's still some spots that get a little bit cooler in here. Most notably this front corner here and this front corner here. So anything that I want that would, if I had anything that would need it, can go in these 2 corners. It doesn't get cold enough to damage any of the hot growers and warm growers that I have in here, obviously, as you can see. But it does get cool enough to trigger some orchids to bloom. Now some of them, like Lodogesii, might need it a lot cooler than that. But for like a Phalaenopsis or some Oncidiums or something, that's all you need. Is just that little drop. So now that we've covered that, why don't we take a tour of what's going on in here to kind of put a cap on this video. Now, when this video goes live, I will be sharing it to High Desert Orchids as well. So not only will you have the opportunity to ask me questions on the YouTube channel, but you'll also, if you're in High Desert Orchids, you can leave a comment on the video link that I'll share there, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Because while I try to think in advance, I'm not good about planning things out, I'll be real. So if you have a question about winter preparation that I didn't answer, then you can ask it and I will answer you then. So let's take a quick tour. So now there's a lot more things in here. A lot more. Now, I hope I mentioned, if not, then I'll mention it now. My Phalaenopsis schilleriana took a nosedive this late spring after it got crown rot, which is why it looks so sad. And this leaf looks like it's about to go as well, but this one seems fine for now. But it put out a nice kiki for me recently after sitting for a bit. It was even continuing to grow roots, and it still is. Like, it's got a ton of roots. This plant is no stranger to roots. So I figured it would eventually put out a kiki, and it did. And it's a nice little kiki. So I'm going to get this crown back. This plant back. Because this is a silverleaf schilleriana from Norman Fang. So it's a real nice plant, and it had fabulous blooms. I will not get to see it flower this year, unfortunately, but next year, if it grows well, I can. But I'm just glad that it recovered. But I had some action on my very vermilion here, but the bud's blasted. I don't know why. But I've got like a couple of my vandas in here. The Spanish moss will be real interesting to keep alive, because I've had Spanish moss in a greenhouse before, but I've always struggled keeping it alive over the winter because I can't hose it down as much. Up here on my this is a display table that I put together, but like, I don't have a lot of things. I mean, I have things, but they're not really easy to place up here. One of them is too tall to place up here, and I was in the middle of moving things around, so this would be a lot fuller normally. This is Rancovola Jiminy Cricket. This is a hybrid of Brassivola nodosa and Rankolalia digbyana. It hasn't been a Brassivola for quite some time, from what I understand, but it used to be in the genus Brassivola. No longer, though. This handsome fella right here is Brassivola appendiculata. It's basically cuculata, but there's a difference in the populations. This one, I believe mine came from Mexico, whereas the other population is in the Caribbean. And this one's appendiculata because the lip lobes are more distinct. But it's beautiful either way, whatever you call it. And it has a beautiful fruity night fragrance. Oops, be careful with that. This is the unfortunately named, but ever gorgeous. Let me grab it and move it, because the sunlight's being weird. There we go. Cycnoches Golden Showers. Still smells good. It smells like bananas, like banana candy. Now, I say unfortunately named because Golden Showers is, well, I'm not going to describe it here, but it's not a safe for work term. But it wasn't named for that. It was named because the flower's like a golden yellow with a green blush, and when the plants get bigger, like this is a first bloom seedling, they will have like a dozen or more, I think even more possibly, flowers. It's a primary hybrid of Cycnoches chlorocylon and Cycnoches heronhosanum. This Princess Kailowani is doing well. Beautiful color and form. But I've also got a seed pod forming. This is Princess Kailowani X Self. I selfed it. This is my clone, Hyperion's Blushing Sunrise. And I selfed it. So I got a pod forming there. This cutie is Bulbophyllum lilacanum. Was supposed to be. It's a small spike because it was it's a small plant. This piece is only 3 bulbs big, whereas this piece is a lot larger and hasn't spiked yet. But it is a cute little thing. Very cute little flowers. With, if I can get, there you can kind of see it, wibbly lips. And then Phalaenopsis Yang Yang Blueberry. This flower is going to finish up soon, I can tell, but this flower is going to open soon. And of course, I've just got some various like Catasetum types strewn about. This is my Galliengia baueri. It's done blooming. I cut the spike back because it died. The spike died, like it was done. Dendrobium unicum, Paphiopedilum QF mini. Is High Desert Orchids project plant from last year, which, as you just saw, dropped its first leaf finally. It's a nice little, cute little plant that has mites. So you're going down here. And you get to see a little how I treat it. I just take my spray and I spray the leaves down with it. I just got the moss, so hopefully the moss doesn't die. But I just give it a nice little spray down to suffocate the mites, and I let it sit for a bit. And there's some more catasetums in here. These are the Fred Clark Cattleyas. This is my Clavosetum Alexandra Seva, which is now bare and hopefully going to spike. Frilidoris. This one up here is Cygnotes, I'm sorry, Wine Delight, with another fat spike of, there's 12 buds. It bloomed here with 14, and now it's got 12, and possibly another spike gonna emerge from there. And we got some more Cattleya types up here, a Hoaria Lava Burst that I planted from a deflast seedling. It's probably already near blooming size, I think. These things don't get very big. And then a bunch of others, Encyclia alata, Crosslawn Prostechia radiata back here, Cattleyanthi Love Triangle right here. It was Love Triangle, right? So it's Chocolate Drop crossed on San Dominal, or Domal. Cattleya Maxima alba with a nice new growth. And this guy, who is attracting some ants from the happy sap, but these are the good little patio ants, they're harmless, is Millennium Magic Witchcraft. Look at those buds. I like how they develop, honestly, because they start out white, like a whitey green, and then they slowly like paint splatter color in until they're solid, like this one. Galliandra leptoceras is in bud again. Nepenthes sanguinea is doing well. Nepenthes Miranda has 2 new pitchers, one on this fan, and this fan has a new pitcher forming here. This is the only pitcher it has right now because the bigger, older pitcher on the bigger fan died. But it's a cute little pitcher. These pitchers will get huge as the plant gets huge, but it's a young plant. So young pitchers. Angraecium Etlerianum. Look at those beautiful root tips. It's like it kind of grows. It just kind of grows like this, where it's just a long stem that just keeps growing, and it'll root up a tree and like around branches and stuff. I've got it hanging for now, and I've got like there's a root here. There was a root here, but this tip stopped growing. And there's a root here, and there's a root there, and there's a spike there, but the tip of it died, so I don't think it's gonna bloom. And then, of course, I've got my 2 Coryanthes, the bucket orchids. This is Coryanthes Gernardii right here, and Coryanthes bruckmülleri, which just put out this beautiful bulb. Now, these leaves on this one put out this weird variegation that we thought was heat stress, but then this new growth here is starting to put it out too. It's on the edges, if you can see that. And it hasn't been hot at all lately for it to cause that, so I don't think it's heat anymore. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's heat. My vanilla vine is fabulous. Phalaenopsis samara is losing this old leaf, so it looks kind of ugly, but it's got a bloom open, a bud on the way, and a whole nother spike on the way. So that's exciting. There's my little Grammatophyllum scriptum dwarf, my import, and slowly establishing, and it's actually rooting out really well. Phalaenopsis hieroglyphica, Maxillaria tenuifolia yamada, the yellow one. Phalaenopsis valentinii is opening another bud. It took a little bit of a break, and it still is kind of on a break, as you can see from these spikes not having buds. But this one popped out a nice bud, and it looks like it's going to have great color. Oncidium Sherry Baby. This is the red fantasy clone. It's a small spike, especially for a Sherry Baby, but I'll take it. Like right now, it smells amazing. Oh my god. Smells amazing. And I got more Cattleyas over here. But the star up here is this guy. Epicalathrin Hilo Adventure. Now I showed this briefly earlier, but this, I want to look at it again. Like, it's so beautiful. It's got a light, kind of like lily fragrance right now. It's go. It's kind of just, it's got a lot of buds. It's got 2 open flowers, a third one about to open, and then it's got, I think, was it 9 more? Because it had 12 buds that I spotted, and including the 2 open flowers. So it's putting on a good show. So yeah, there's some blooms and happenings in the greenhouse right now. Do hope you guys enjoyed this video, because I know I am. So look for a part 2, so to speak. I don't know if I'll label it part 2. You'll see it when this video goes up, whether or not I have. But a quote-unquote part 2 on the equipment for the greenhouse, or what I recommend you need for a greenhouse to overwinter. Because if you have a greenhouse, or you want a greenhouse, and you want to overwinter your plants in it, especially if you live in a colder place, you're going to want to know how to do that. And even I make no claims to being an expert in it, but I've done this is my 5th year with a greenhouse outside, technically. And so I am good. I kind of know what I want to do and how I want to do it to get the greenhouse protected for the winter. You can already see some of it, but I will talk more about it later. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. This is a little bit of a longer video, but I'm sure you guys will enjoy anyway. Please leave your questions about winter preparation and how to do it, when to do it. If you have any other questions regarding the topic, leave them in the comments below, or if you are in high desert orchids, comment on the post when I share the link to this video, and you can ask me questions and provide input there. Thank you guys for watching.